She remembered it clearly. She remembered the exact words. She remembered where she was standing when he said them. She remembered the feeling that followed, the specific weight of what had just been communicated to her. She brought it up 3 days later. He looked at her with the particular expression she had come to dread. Not anger, not guilt. Something that looked almost like concern. He said, "That is not what happened." He said, "I never said that." He said, "I'm worried about you. You've been doing this a lot lately, misremembering things, getting confused. Maybe you should talk to someone." And here is where it began, not the behavior. That had been happening for months. What began in that specific moment was the process by which she started to believe him. She went back over the memory, examined it, looked for the places where she might have been wrong, where she might have misheard, misread, imposed a meaning that wasn't there. She couldn't find them, but she kept looking, because the alternative, that the person she had trusted completely was deliberately reconstructing events she clearly remembered, felt too large and too frightening to hold. And so she did what the brain does when the social reality and the internal record are in direct conflict. She began, slowly and without realizing it, to revise the internal record, not because she was weak, not because she was naive or lacking in intelligence, because she was human. And the human brain, for reasons that are precise, neurological, and completely understandable once you see them clearly, is built to do exactly this under the right conditions. What those conditions are, why they are so effective, and what they do to the mind over time. That is what we are examining today. The term gaslighting comes from a 1944 film. A husband systematically manipulates his wife into doubting her perception of reality, dimming the gas lights in their home, and then calmly denying the lights have changed when she notices. She begins to believe she is losing her mind. The film gave us the name, but the behavior it describes is far older and far more common than most people realize. Here is the precise definition, and precision matters here because the word has become so widespread that it has lost some of its clinical specificity. Gaslighting is the sustained, deliberate contradiction of another person's perception of reality by someone they trust, with the effect, whether intended or not, of causing the targeted person to doubt the reliability of their own mind. 3 elements make it different from ordinary disagreement. First, it is sustained. Not a single incident, a pattern repeated over time. Second, it targets perception itself, not just the facts of what happened, the person's confidence in their own ability to perceive accurately. Third, it is enacted by someone the targeted person has an emotional bond with, a partner, a parent, a close friend, a manager they respect. That third element, the emotional bond, is not incidental. It is the entire mechanism, because gaslighting does not work on strangers. It does not work on people we have no reason to trust. It works specifically, almost exclusively, on the people we love. And understanding why requires understanding something about how the human brain is built. Welcome to Dr. Cole's Dark Psychology. I'm Dr. Evan Cole, behavioral psychologist and behavioral analyst. On this channel, we examine human behavior at the level it actually operates, not the visible actions, the invisible mechanisms underneath them. Today's topic is one that has entered mainstream vocabulary in recent years, a word that appears constantly in therapy offices, in social media conversations, in books about difficult relationships: gaslighting. Most people who use this word know what it feels like from the inside. Far fewer understand how it actually works at the neurological level, and why it works on the specific people it works on in the precise way it does. By the end of this video, you will understand the mechanism completely, and that understanding will change how you see both the people who experience it and the people who do it. Let's start with what it actually is. The human brain did not evolve to function as an isolated fact-finding machine. It evolved as a social organ, one that is continuously calibrating its model of reality against the input of the people around it. For most of human history, this social calibration was not a weakness. It was adaptive. The individual who could update their perception of reality based on the consensus of their trusted community was more likely to survive than the individual who insisted on the primacy of their own perception regardless of what others reported. If everyone around you saw danger that you didn't see, updating your perception was not weakness, it was intelligence. The brain learned, at an evolutionary level, that the people around you know things you don't, that incorporating trusted social input into your model of reality is not a failure of independent thinking. It is how the social brain is supposed to work. Gaslighting does not exploit a flaw in this system. It exploits the system itself, functioning exactly as it was designed. Because when someone we trust tells us that our memory of an event is wrong, the brain does not automatically dismiss their account. It enters a state of conflict. On one side, the internal memory record, the encoded representation of what we experienced, the sensory details, the emotional context, the narrative the brain constructed at the time. On the other side, the social input, the account being offered by someone whose reliability our brain has previously verified, someone whose presence our social system has identified as important. Research in social neuroscience has consistently shown that when these two inputs are in conflict, the brain does not automatically side with its own record. It weighs them, and the weighting is systematically biased toward the social input, particularly when that input comes from someone in a position of emotional authority over us. This is where the damage begins. Not from a single moment of doubt, from the accumulation of that doubt, applied again and again by the same trusted source over months and years. In 2011, researchers at the Weizmann Institute published a study in the journal Science that documented this process with precision that should disturb every person who hears it. Participants were shown they had made errors on a memory task. Some of these corrections came from other people, some came from computers. When the false corrections came from other people, specifically from socially present others, participants not only changed their answers, brain imaging showed they also changed the underlying memory trace itself. The hippocampus, the brain's primary memory storage system, showed altered activation patterns consistent with genuine memory revision rather than simple compliance. The participants were not pretending to remember differently, they were remembering differently. The social input had not just changed their stated answer, it had reached into the stored memory and altered what was recorded there. Let that sit for a moment. Sustained social pressure from a trusted source does not just change what we are willing to say happened, it changes what we remember happening. This is the neurological mechanism that gaslighting exploits, and this is why the targeted person is not making a choice to believe the gaslighter over their own memory. They are not weighing two accounts and selecting the wrong one. Their memory, the stored encoded record of what they experienced, has been physically revised by the social input. The question is no longer, why did she believe him over herself? The question is, Given what we now know about how the social brain works, how could she not? People who have experienced gaslighting often ask a version of the same question. Why did I believe it? Why did the doubt get in? I'm not unintelligent. I know what I experienced. Why didn't I hold on to it? The question implies a flaw, a vulnerability specific to the person targeted that allowed the gaslighting to succeed where it would have failed on someone more self-assured. This implication is not just incorrect, it is the opposite of what the research shows. The people most susceptible to gaslighting are not the most psychologically fragile. They are frequently the most psychologically invested. The people who care most about the relationship, who are most committed to understanding it, who are most motivated to find an explanation for the pain that does not require believing the person they love is deceiving them. The doubt does not get in through weakness, it gets in through caring. Otherwise, there is a second factor the research consistently identifies. Gaslighting almost always exists inside a relationship that also contains genuine warmth, genuine connection, real positive history between two people. The gaslighter is not, in most cases, consistently hostile. They are, at other times, in other moments, the person the targeted individual loves, trusts, has built a life with. That intermittency is not incidental to why the gaslighting works. It is structurally central to it. Because in the moments of warmth, when the connection feels real, the brain's weighting system recalibrates. The trusted social source becomes more trusted. And the next time the gaslighter contradicts their memory, that input carries even more authority than it did before. The warmth makes the doubt more effective, not less. A single incident of having your memory contradicted by someone you trust produces discomfort, but not lasting damage. The brain weighs the inputs, may revise the memory, and moves on. Sustained gaslighting, the accumulated pattern over months and years, produces something qualitatively different, because the damage is not to individual memories. It is to the faculty of perception itself. Over time, as the pattern accumulates, as memory after memory is found to be wrong, interpretation after interpretation revised, emotional response after emotional response reframed as confused or disproportionate, something fundamental changes. The targeted person stops trusting their own internal experience. Not any particular memory, the process of forming memories, not any particular interpretation, the capacity to interpret, not any particular emotional response, the reliability of emotional responses as information about what is real. It is unknown. This erosion of perceptual self-trust extends far beyond the relationship where it was installed. People who have experienced sustained gaslighting frequently describe years after leaving, during which they cannot trust their own judgment in other relationships, in work environments, in new situations. They second-guess perceptions that are entirely reliable. They ask, was that what happened, or am I misremembering again? Is this what I think it is, or am I reading it wrong again? The question that was placed there by someone else has become their own question, asked constantly, about everything. This is the most significant and most lasting damage sustained gaslighting produces, not the loss of specific memories, the loss of confidence and the ability to form reliable ones. I want to examine the other side of this dynamic, because the popular framing of gaslighting, which focuses almost entirely on the targeted person's experience, leaves a significant part of the picture unexamined. The question of whether the gaslighter knows what they are doing. You idoritirazatstorau inikularacher saseter edarsuderbaiderastats ichirur interats. The answer in the research is not what most people expect. In a significant proportion of cases, particularly in intimate relationships rather than calculated manipulation, the person doing the contradicting does not experience themselves as lying. They experience themselves as correcting. Memory is reconstructive in every human brain. The gaslighter's memory of the same event has also been shaped by motivated cognition, by the need to maintain a self-concept that does not include having caused harm, by the same social weighting system that makes the targeted person susceptible to revision in the first place. The gaslighter, in many cases, genuinely believes the version of reality they are insisting on. Basingaber dan kursinari, I kansound or din staber, yerur asin down she hatch. This does not reduce to harm. It does not make the pattern less serious or its effects less real, but it means that a simple framing, calculated manipulator and innocent victim, is in many cases an incomplete account of what is actually happening. In many relationships where gaslighting occurs, two people with reconstructive memories are in sustained conflict about a shared reality, and the person with more relational power, more emotional authority, more psychological investment in a particular version of events is winning that conflict, not because they are malicious, because they are convinced, and their conviction, delivered with the certainty of someone who believes every word of it, is precisely what gives the social input its authority over the targeted person's memory system. The most effective gaslighting is done by someone who has no idea they are doing it. For the person who has experienced sustained gaslighting, the path back to perceptual self-trust is real, but it requires understanding what was actually damaged. It was not intelligence, it was not memory capacity, it was the relationship between the person and their own internal signals. The confidence with which they receive their own perceptions as reliable information about reality. That relationship can be rebuilt through repetition, through the accumulated experience of having a perception, trusting it, and finding it confirmed. The rebuilding is slow because the damage was slow. What was eroded over months and years does not return in weeks. What helps most, both in research and in clinical practice, is consistent reality confirmation from a stable outside source, not just emotional support, not just being believed, specific, repeated external confirmation that what the person perceives is real, while the internal system recalibrates. A therapist trained in trauma, people in the person's life who witness the same events, documentation kept at the time before revision could reach it. Says Nod, and for someone currently inside a gaslighting dynamic, the most valuable thing to understand is this. The doubt you feel about your own perception is not evidence that your perception is wrong. It is evidence that you are in a relationship where someone else's version of reality has been given more authority than your own memory system can sustain without beginning to revise itself. That is a statement about the relationship, not about your reliability as a perceiver. The brain that revised its memories under sustained social pressure from a trusted source was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was not failing. It was being exploited. Understanding the difference between those two things, between a mind that failed and a mind that was manipulated, is often the first step toward trusting it again. The word gaslighting has become so common that it has begun to lose the weight of what it actually describes. What it describes is this: a person, through sustained contradiction of someone's perception of reality, teaching that person's brain to distrust the only instrument through which they experience the world. Not through violence, not through force, through the quiet, consistent authority of someone they trusted, saying again and again in 100 different ways, "What you perceive is not real. What you remember did not happen. What you feel is not a reliable account of what is." And the brain, the social brain, the adaptive brain, the brain that evolved to trust the people it loves, believed them. That is not weakness. That is one of the most human things that exists. And understanding it clearly at the level it actually operates is how you begin to protect it. If this gave you a framework for something you have been living inside, or helped you understand someone you love in a way you couldn't before, that is exactly what this channel exists to do. Subscribe to Dr. Cole's Dark Psychology. Every week we go beneath the surface of human behavior, into the neuroscience and psychology of why people do what they do when they are in pain, in power, and in the grip of mechanisms they cannot see from inside them. No judgment, no shortcuts, no simple answers to complex questions, just the science underneath the behavior. We'll see you in the next one.